Hi, I'm Dre. Welcome to Brace Yourself Podcast. One thing that I do need to do some housekeeping items before we begin. I would like to let you know if you or someone you know is struggling with mental health, please call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for free confidential support. For immediate assistance, please call 911. Thank you for that. So like I said, my name is Dre, and this is Brace Yourself Podcast. Pretty much the purpose of this podcast is to discuss subjects such as mental health illness, that can range from anxiety, depression, to even health issues as dementia, autism, any type of life challenge that you're facing, such as also chronic illnesses, special needs. This is basically an open space for anybody who has had a lifelong challenge, and you perhaps have tried therapy 1 or 1,000,000 times, just like myself. And I'll get into myself in a little bit. I just wanted to kind of discuss what this podcast will be. So if you've been struggling with those issues, even if you've been struggling with them for a short while and don't know where to turn, this podcast's purpose is to have a free, open, safe space for you to discuss those issues. We here at BraceYourself.Podcast are not mental health specialists. However, there may be at times where I will have a mental health specialist as a guest and may be able to answer some of the questions that you may have or have seen on the podcast with several guests. We will have one guest at a time. And also, if you're interested in becoming a guest, you can email us at braceyourmentalhealth@gmail.com. That process will help me to be able to distinguish, first come, first serve, or also there will be a small screening process so I can get to know your personality, get to know what you would like to discuss on the podcast, understand where you're coming from, understand the challenges that you're dealing with, and then we can go from there. And we will be recording this, not live for now. We will just be recording it. The episode will be uploaded to YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram. So if you're not already following us, please follow us at TikTok with BraceYourself.Podcast, on IG, Instagram, also BraceYourself.Podcast, and on YouTube, BraceYourself.Podcast. And there's quite a few of podcasts that have the similar name. So you can just look for our little icon, which I'm sure is posted on this stream, but it's a little animated picture of myself with my puppy, and I'm writing down the word anxiety. So with that, I'm going to merge into what my issues have been throughout my life. And that is, I have been dealing with anxiety since I was about 7 years old. I didn't really actually know that I had anxiety until I was diagnosed barely in 2018. I lived a long life from 7 until 2018. I won't give my life or my year of birth or anything like that. As you know, if you know me personally as a friend or confidant or an associate, I never give my age out because for some reason, I don't like to accept my age. So hopefully I can stay young forever. I'm no vampire, but but anyway, I have been struggling with anxiety pretty much, like I said, my entire life. I didn't know that I was. I didn't know where it came from. I had so many anger issues as well that I didn't know where they were stemming from. And so when I finally was diagnosed, I realized a lot of the issues that I had. And fortunately, I had a psychiatrist that helped me out greatly. She took the time to really listen, which I know is difficult to find a psychiatrist or a doctor that will really look at you and listen to you as a human being, as a person, and not a number or just another appointment. And I was lucky enough, after doing some research, and lucky enough that they took my insurance. And I know that that's a big problem, especially in these times and the times that we're going through with insurances and benefits being cut. It is very difficult for a lot of people to find that type of assistance. And so I hope that with this podcast, you can at least vent out what you are feeling and learn coping skills from other guests who may have the same issues that you are struggling with. Now, as I said, I was diagnosed in 2018, and I didn't realize it. So the way I explained it to my doctor was the day that I was feeling these strange feelings that I didn't know where they were coming from. I literally took a pen and paper and I started writing down all of the feelings that were going through my body, through my mind, and just started listing them basically. And I came up with about 27 different emotions, believe it or not. 27 different emotions is a lot for a person to handle all at once in one condensed circle of time. So I went to my doctor. I handed him the list. At this time, particularly, it was a therapist. So this was not my psychiatrist. I handed him the list and I asked him, what is it that's going on with me? I have no clue. So he read off the list and he said, Dre, you are clearly having panic attacks, anxiety attacks, severe anxiety attacks. And then he asked me a question. He asked, how long do you feel this way when you start to have these feelings? And I said, generally anywhere between, as soon as it starts, usually it would start during the nighttime, but I started feeling them as the older I got, I started feeling them frequently during the daytime. So at night, they would start right around bedtime, whenever bedtime was. I don't have a particular bedtime. So I just kind of go to bed and do some of the things that other people do. Doom scroll, watch a movie, watch some YouTube, whatever it is, until I fall asleep. And usually that led me to not being able to fall asleep until the next day, probably 7 a.m. And so I would live with those feelings, trying to kind of distract those feelings. But when he said, if you're having them that long, that's definitely a bad panic attack. And I didn't even know what those words meant. And so he had to explain to me what a panic attack was. So we had to go through, obviously, session after session after session, trying to dig where that came from. So the rooted problem was, unfortunately, my parents and my immediate family were all alcoholics or addicted to some substance of some source. And I was constantly around that from the time I was born until I was about probably in my early 20s. I would say probably maybe 23. And so in my early childhood brain development years, I was kind of instinctively taught to be the parent of two, I don't want to say sick individuals because, well, in a way they were sick because they were debilitated by this alcoholism and substance abuse. So at 5 years old, I realized I needed to start to take care of myself. Not that my parents were neglectful or not loving or not caring about me. I've realized as I've gotten older, looking back and getting to know my mother as an adult for a little while, I'll give you a little backstory about that. But I realized that they tried the best that they could, and I was their world. We did have a very close, loving relationship. However, because of the substances and the alcohol and the presence of the attitude change and the personality changes that came along with using those substances, changed our family dynamic. It would become very violent. There would be a lot of screaming, a lot of swearing, a lot of things being thrown at the walls. I remember having very violent wake-up calls while I was asleep, with threats of being told that we were moving, just me and my mother. But those things those things were results of the alcoholism. My parents, when they were not on these substances, even sometimes when they didn't always fight. They didn't always argue. They didn't always get violent, but 80% of the time they did. So along with that, another vulnerable situation that happened to me while I was young, which started at the age of 4 and ended at the age of 10. I was molested by a somewhat relative. And the reason why I say somewhat relative is because my mother was adopted as a baby. And so the family that she was adopted by had a niece. And so that was my violator. That was my abuser. So that's why I say we were kind of related, not really related, because once my grandparents passed away, that chain pretty much broke. And at 10 years old, the abuse actually ended, because my violator, my abuser, had actually gotten pregnant. And that in a way was a blessing to me, because then that meant her focus was going to be on boyfriends or men and her baby and the many other children that she ended up having. Luckily, I cut that tie off from my relationships, my family relationships. And like I said, once my adoptive grandparents had passed away, I pretty much lost contact with that entire side of my family. So my mother's side, I have no clue who they are at this point in my life. I don't know where they are. I don't even know if they exist. So that's a little background of my mom. My mom passed away 20 years ago. And that had a great effect on me as well, and on my anxiety, my PTSD. I also suffer from CPSD, which is compulsive personality traumatic disorder. Many of you might have heard of OCD before, but my type of OCD is not outward, it's inward. Whereas I have to have my personal life, my personal space in complete order. If I visit someone and their house is disarray, or they're disheveled in any way, or nothing in their life is in order, it has absolutely no effect on me, and I don't have any judgment on them at all, because that's their life. That's their life. However, in my world, I have to have things contained, categorized, in order, and sometimes that is extremely exhausting. So, after many discussions with my husband, he convinced me to see a psychiatrist. So I was very reluctant, because my anxiety had me also paranoid. And so I kept thinking to myself, why does he want me medicated? And I had suspicions of that, but that was not me in my right mind. That was my anxiety. That was my mental health suffering to the point of, I was running out of gas basically with my mental health. So luckily, like I said, I found another psychiatrist who listened, who took notes, who my assessment, I believe, lasted like 2.5 hours. And she asked questions that no one had ever asked me before. She asked if I suffered from night terrors, in which I did. Every single dream that I have, if I don't take specific medication for it, I will have a night terror. And it's very disturbing when you wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, or screaming, or trying to reach out for help, acting out in your dream, and your partner, your husband, your wife, whoever, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whoever is sleeping with you is startled by you waking up this way. It starts to kind of, be a little discouraging, a little disturbing, and scary, basically. So she asked me about that. She asked me how long my panic attacks had been going on. And I did notice a pattern that on Saturday nights, not on Saturdays, on Sunday nights, I get these, what I call Sunday scaries. And that's usually when I use my medication to kind of calm me down, because I have separation anxiety as well. And so on Sunday nights, my memory still is stuck on having to leave for school, knowing that Saturday night meant that the party was coming to my house, and there was going to be alcohol and substances, and they were going to be there basically partying the entire night. And in the morning, I wouldn't have anyone to sort of wake me up, get me ready for school. And I was like basically kindergarten through maybe 3rd grade at this point in time. So I knew I had to get up, get dressed. I would find a chair, and this is after crawling over people that were passed out in our living room, and find a chair, climb up on the chair, grab the bread open up the fridge, grab bologna, seriously, bologna, and make myself a very dry sandwich. And so I would eat my sandwich, and then I was very thirsty. So I would drink whatever was left on the kitchen table, which was usually alcohol. So I would drink a cup of wine or half of a little bit of whiskey or half of a beer that might have been left over. Whatever was liquid, I would drink it. So needless to say, I was very lit when I went to kindergarten class. And now I laugh at it because it's something that I understand now why it happened. It's not a funny joke to actually raise a child that way or to have a child in that environment. That is a very serious situation. It's now considered child neglect. It may even be considered child abuse in some form. However, my parents, like I said, I didn't say this, but my parents were extremely young when they got together. In fact, they eloped. My mom was 16. My father was 18 or 19. And they eloped, they got married. And then a year later, or by the time my mom was 18, they had me. So we basically grew up, all three of us, together. I didn't grow up with any brothers or sisters. I didn't have any. My parents tried, but unfortunately they were unable to have any more kids. So that is a little bit about me. There's deeper and longer stories that I'd be willing to share. When I don't have a guest, I can come on and discuss more about my life and my life with anxiety. Fortunately, I am now on medications that have helped curb my anxiety, have helped me think clearly, have helped me not panic so much. And if I do panic, I'm so grateful for the medication that has been available to me. And I feel very, very fortunate that I have insurance that accesses that medication. Not a lot of people do. And so because of that, I wanted to kind of start this podcast to get pretty real with you. I wanted to start this podcast so that people can feel comfortable, safe, and not feel that they have to pay a doctor and look for months and months for insurances and benefits that will cover those services. I'm not saying, like I said, we're not professionals, healthcare professionals. We are not a team of chronic illness professionals, special needs. But in my lifetime, I have had experiences with associates, friendships, family members that have suffered from those types of needs, those types of illnesses. So I can give you my coping skills that I have learned, but I also want to mention that the opinions and the statements made by our guests do not reflect the statements and opinions of this podcast. So I want people, with that in mind, I do still want you to be genuine, sincere, free to speech, respect the space. However, speak in your best way that you can to describe what it is that you're being challenged with, whether it's family issues, parental alienation, mental health issues, like I said, chronic illnesses, special needs. Those will be our topics. Now, we may even be introduced to new topics: divorce, marital problems, separation anxiety, anything at all that comes with life and its challenges. Those things are quite difficult to understand, and I understand that sometimes it may take people maybe a couple of times to be a guest on the podcast, to feel vulnerable enough and to feel safe enough to discuss those issues that you are going through. And we completely understand. There will be no judgment here on the podcast. There will be no hate speech. There will be no exclusion of any sort. We are including every ethnic background, gender, race, style of living. However, we do ask that you respect the podcast if you are struggling with any type of legal or illegal substances, to try to be sober on the podcast, at least for the duration of the podcast. I would like to take a little bit of time to tell you how the process is going to work. So now that I've explained the intention, the process will be, you can email the podcast at braceyourmentalhealth@gmail.com, or you can DM us at TikTok, Instagram, or maybe drop a comment on the YouTube video. And but however, I believe the email process will be best. That way I have a way to contact you back. And at that point, we will set up a screening meeting between myself and the guest. And like I said, get to know what your needs are, what your challenges are. And at that point, I will get to know what questions will be appropriate for me to ask you during the podcast. So approximately 30 minutes would be the podcast time, and I would give you at least 5 questions to answer during the podcast. Now, I'm not just going to up and surprise you with the questions that I need answered or that you need answered to. I will, in our screening, after I get the idea of what life challenges you're struggling with, I will contact you on that Monday of the start of the week, on a Monday, and email you those questions and give you until Thursday for you to process and kind of thoughtfully and mentally go through the answers that you would like to discuss and basically, answer the questions that I've given you. So by Friday, then we would record the podcast, and that podcast will be uploaded to YouTube. I will attempt to upload the podcast on Spotify or on Apple iTunes or Apple Podcast. That may come later, seeing as this is our first introduction to the podcast. We do kind of have to see how things flow, and basically, to be completely honest with you, this is the first time for me for doing a podcast. So in case you are wondering, I am no pro, but I am a pro of being a good listener. And I am a trustworthy, genuine, as friendly as I can be. My sarcasm might get in the way at times, and I do love the medicine of laughter as well. So with that screening, we will be meeting on Google Meets. Hopefully anybody, that service is completely free to anyone. I will not be recording our personal screening process, just to give you a heads up with that. Once we do the screening, you can give me your real name during the screening if you'd like. You can use a pseudonym. You can use a screen name. However you would like to be introduced on the podcast is perfectly fine with us. Perfectly fine with me as well. And I will address you as such. And hopefully this podcast will be successful. Hopefully we will have guests that will be eager to share their life challenges. And hopefully we will be able to build a community that is able to help one another. One person may have a coping skill that has worked for them for years, and another listener may say, hey, I haven't tried that. Maybe that'll work for me. So that's basically the bottom line. We will not be discussing any medication that any guest is taking or not taking. We will not be liable for you to try any medication. We suggest that you do contact a mental health specialist or a doctor or a psychiatrist, a therapist of any of that sort, especially if you have mental health issues or if you have special needs, to contact a doctor that specializes in that need. Chronic illnesses. I know that it is very difficult to find a doctor that may be able to hear you out. Unfortunately, you will need to find that on your own. So, hopefully I have explained everything. If you have any questions at all, you can comment on the YouTube video. Any supportive shareable notes that you think I should include or not include. I will take any opinions, any suggestions to mind. It might not mean that I will use them, but I will definitely take them. And, as always on social media, you might get negative comments, and those are people who may not be completely understand the purposes of our assistance. They may be struggling with their own issues as well. So everyone has free speech, whether negative or positive, unfortunately and fortunately, because this is a country, and I hope this reaches other countries as well. And hopefully we can find a way to translate if that's the case. But I do want to thank my team that has been behind this, helping me to get this up and running. My team is included as Daniel at Wisdom Mentality, which he has a book, which may be backwards right here, but it's a book containing to reprogram your mind and reclaim your life. This is Daniel at Wisdom Mentality. It's a really, it's not a big read. However, it is very insightful, very helpful. It helps you to kind of exactly what it says, reprogram how you think, how you can manage your stress, manage your placement in your mind, to think more positive, to help yourself. Whereas you can cleanse your negative thoughts or your negative feelings from inside and declare them to a positive place. You can reach him at Daniel at Wisdom Mentality. He is on all the social medias, TikTok, Instagram, I believe YouTube as well. He is on Discord, and this book is on sale for the humble price of $15. I have been reading it, and I can tell you by experience that this is a magnificent book. It does help you, and it also calms you. And he also has other products that are consumable, such as herbal teas that may help you with relaxation and calmness. And just by reading the book in itself helps with the anxiety, takes your mind off the negative, puts your mind into the happiness. Another person that I'd like to thank is a very close friend of mine. Her name is Quipo, And she has helped me with practicing on my screen. Even though I may seem a little tense right now, but don't worry, I will loosen up. And last but not least, my husband, Paul. He has been a great supporter, has helped me up with this beautiful setup, which, by the way, I am a huge Wednesday fan. I have been a Wednesday fan for as long as I can remember. She is my favorite character. And as you can see, I have some art in the background. I am an artist as well as a screenwriter. So I have a lot of projects going on. But believe me, once we kick this off, as we have today, you will have my undivided attention. And one thing that I'd like to leave you with is, I know life is challenging, but I also know that each of us carry a light that we were born with. And I want you to be able to, underneath the coal, the mineral of coal that you may be carrying, the weight that you may be carrying emotionally, physically, mentally, that it's hard to find that light. But I want you to, hopefully with this podcast as well, that you will be able to discover your light and start to let it shine through and start to beam it unto others so that they may be able to receive the light and perhaps magnetically start to shine their own light. I want you to have an absolutely great day. Take yourself out into the sunshine, out to the beach if that's where you live, which I hope you do because that's my favorite place, or to your favorite spot. Eat the slice of cake, eat a couple of chips, drink the Dr. Pepper. I mean, if you're sparingly, try everything sparingly. But I also want you to try happy. And with that, I will leave you, and I appreciate your time and your efforts here and your listening, and I'm certainly grateful for all of you. Remember, try happy. Okay.